Thank you to the sponsors of this video, TF2blaze.com. The best defense against the TF2 bot crisis is a full server. Every time a space opens up in a server, it's another chance for something sinister to slip in. Now, we all have to leave games sometimes. Perhaps you need to do a frontal liquid evacuation session or get a drink. Or maybe you've hit your 1 hour quota of video game time. This actually used to be a thing when I was growing up. Feels bad, man. But sometimes I get the feeling that people are leaving TF2 servers for other reasons. That's right, rage quitters. I don't want to play anymore! There are many types of rage quitters, and they can cause more harm to a game than you might first imagine. You yourself may even indeed be a rage quitter and not even realise it. But if at any point you're leaving a game because it's not quite going your way, then it follows that you are indeed, I'm sorry to say it, a filthy rage quitter. Types of rage quitter. You have the give up at first sign of defeaters. Possibly the worst kind. The my team sucksers. That one sounded better in my mind. These can occur at any time, but distinguish themselves by blaming everyone else on their team at all times. The lost the last round, so I'm probably going to dip out now. I've noticed this an awful lot in Koth, and more frustratingly in Payload, where because they've lost 1 or 2 rounds, they just give up. But as we know, Payload maps get progressively more difficult and often more enjoyable, so to rage quit after losing 2 rounds of Payload and there's 1 left, and maybe it was a close game, well, this kind of behaviour just blows my mind. And finally, we have the I'll quit just before the round ends. That means I never officially lost, right? Possibly the least problematic specimen, and you know, maybe they're just in a rush to get into the next game. Getting murdered in the humiliation time. I can understand why you might want to avoid that if you're having a really rough time and a really bad day. It doesn't help that on top of all this, you have many other reasons people might decide to quit a game prematurely. For example, if a map comes up they don't like, if there are too many people playing your class, if there's a douchebag in chat you cannot be bothered to deal with, or perhaps you have a preference for attack or defense and that's all you want to play this session. I actually had a theory that attack was vastly more popular, but it turns out that this isn't really the case based on this poll I did on Twitter. So people come and go from servers for many different reasons, but we should at least try to reduce this where possible. Let me explain why rage quitting can be so damaging to an individual game. It can very easily cause a snowball effect. A player rage quits, the strength of that team decreases, the team starts to lose slightly more. So someone else rage quits, the team gets worse, the role intensifies, and so on and so forth. And often auto balance can't keep up with the loss of players, and of course the players who do get auto balanced aren't having the best experience either. The game will then try to find new players to inject into the server to fill up these spaces, and sometimes, to be fair, it does a very good job of this, but at the same time, coming into a game halfway through is never quite as enjoyable as starting a fresh round. And I'm sure we've all experienced coming into a game when there's about 30 seconds left on the clock and you're being demolished. So going back to that fourth type of rage quitter, those who quit right at the end, well, I guess you're adding to this problem. So despite Valve's attempt to refill the server, sometimes the loss of players sparks a kind of chain reaction, and before you know it, the server is dead. And then you are left with just those poor stubborn players trying their darndest to win in a 3v3, playing until the bitter end, despite the fact that the game has become completely meaningless. And as I said before, whilst this is all going on, with all this coming and going, it's very likely that some scummy bot has slipped into the game and exacerbated things further. Nice word, Toofty. Thank you, I learnt it from Shaun of the Dead. Let's talk about the mindset of a rage quitter. Rage quitting might not seem like a big deal, and this is kind of true. Some days I don't witness many, if any, rage quitters at all. But when I do, it really, for some reason, infuriates me. And I think this is due to my personal mindset when I'm in these kind of situations. For some reason, and I don't know why this is the case or what it says about me, or if it's a positive or negative character trait, but when I start losing, it makes me want to win even more. The harder the game, the bigger the challenge, the more I want to win. Even when getting rolled, I feel like I start to get more try-hard, and then of course there is a point where I give up and start messing about. Now this is very strange and contradictory to my typical non-competitive play style and general outlook on gaming. So I'm not sure what's going on here, but I've noticed that this is literally the opposite mentality of a rage quitter. And I've noticed that this is the most intense when I join a game late and I'm put onto a losing team, and for some reason I get this crazy urge as if I want to come to the rescue and change the tide of battle. I know, it's ridiculous. Even to the extent that sometimes when I do need to leave a game, but then let's say we lose the first round of a Koth map, I then find myself literally unable to leave the server, as I must now enact revenge and show them who's boss. And then we lose anyway, obviously. And I think it's this reason that causes me to feel so passionate about rage quitters, because it's literally the polar opposite. And I would love to hear what you guys think about this, and if any of you guys can relate to what I've just talked about. So in summary, rage quitters are the worst thing in the world, and rank very highly on the scumbag scale. But joking aside, I wanted to make this video because people may not realise the full impact that rage quitting has on a server, and in the long term, even the game. I get it, sometimes you are being rolled and it can feel helpless, but losing is okay. And I know that saying that here doesn't help much when you're in the heat of battle getting dominated by 7 tryhards and you have 9 spies on your team, but next time you're about to rage quit, perhaps it's worth reconsidering. At the end of the day, obviously you can do whatever you like, but I don't know about you, I just love it when I find myself in a nice, healthy, full server with no bots in sight, which is unfortunately becoming a rarer sight these days than we would obviously like. I have to say I was a little bit disappointed when vote scramble and the ability to freely switch teams were removed from the game. I thought these were 2 really useful features that helped deal with balance, and now all we can do is rely on Valve to do its best to fill those gaps and to completely ignore the fact that we're being overrun by bots. I suppose you could argue that in some instances, by leaving, you open up spaces for better and less triggered or jaded players to come in and fill your spot to help rebalance the game, but honestly, I think in most cases sticking around is the better option, especially when it's a close game or between rounds, because remember, if you're playing payload and you're getting rolled on defense, like I said, the maps get harder and harder for the attacking team, and the games are going to get closer and closer and more enjoyable, and we've all seen many teams turn it around before at the last minute, and it's those games that are the most enjoyable of all. I suppose one last thing you could do is take this whole thing one step further and stick around when the server changes maps. Actually, scrap that, that's insane, forget it. This topic just gets me so riled up and angry. There was so much more I wanted to talk about, but I just can't be bothered anymore with this video, so forget it.
Yeah, I dare you, rage quit. Come on, make us both happy.